The Lord of the Rings franchise has influenced my life more than any other piece of media. It's why I started writing. It's how I eventually got into Dungeons and Dragons. It's why I decided to grow my hair out, even though I look more like Jeff Daniels from Dumb and Dumber than Legolas. A day does not go by where I don't think about the Lord of the Rings in some capacity. My introduction to the Legendarium of Middle-earth was the animated Rankin Bass made-for-TV special The Hobbit, which was released in 1977. Now, my soul wouldn't be yanked out of content non-existence and dumped into this gutter in outer space until many years later, but evenings spent watching this cartoon with my cousin in the early 90s are some of my favorite memories. If you're a fan of Middle-earth and haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you track it down. It has very charming animation and plenty of songs that are guaranteed to get stuck in your head. As I grew up, I would eventually get into the books. I started with The Hobbit and quickly followed with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And soon after I was done with those, the movies started to hit theaters. Intermixed with movie releases and looking to capitalize on the surge in popularity of the Lord of the Rings franchise, a smattering of games set in Middle-earth began to hit store shelves from 2002 to 2004. What a time to be a teenager with no responsibilities. It was like every few months a new dream was coming true. At this time, 2 publishers had the rights to create games in this universe. One of them, Sierra Entertainment, a subsidiary of Vivendi Universal Games, had the right to publish games based on the literary Middle-earth universe. Games based on the books, basically. That's where the Fellowship of the Ring, the War of the Ring, and the Hobbit games came from. Electronic Arts, everyone's second favorite publisher behind Activision, had the rights to publish games based on Peter Jackson's cinematic adaptations of the books. This brought us the action games, The Two Towers and The Return of the King, as well as the RTS Battle for Middle-earth, and the subject of today's video, The Lord of the Rings, The Third Age. I had a lot of fun with the aforementioned action games as a kid, but The Third Age really appealed to me because it was an RPG that also had a combat system very similar to Final Fantasy X. I loved games like Aiden Chronicles for the Nintendo 64, and of course Final Fantasies 7 through 10 on the PlayStation systems, so to finally have an RPG set in my favorite fictional universe was incredibly exciting. It had nice and familiar systems that I'd grown accustomed to with console RPGs, felling enemies to gain experience points, leveling up, allocating stat points to whatever I wished, learning and training new, more powerful skills. I got my hands on it a few days after release in the fall of 2004, and I loved every second of it. So I do have quite a bit of nostalgia attached to it. But does it still hold up 20 years later? Let's take another look and find out. And while you're here, if you like longer videos about older games, go ahead and subscribe for future and past videos just like this one. With that being said, my lords and ladies, it is once again my great honor to present to you here today The Lord of the Rings, The Third Age for the PlayStation 2. The Third Age is unique from its contemporaries in that the story is focused on original characters not included in the books or the movies. The overarching events of the game still follow the major plot points of the movies, you just experience them through the eyes of these new characters instead of the members of the Fellowship. So who are these new characters? The first you meet is Barethor, a Gondorian captain of the guard on a journey to Rivendell to find Boromir. Next is Idriel, an elf from Lothlorien in the service of Lady Galadriel, who saves Barethor after he is attacked by Nazgul on the road. Early on in the adventure, they encounter Elagast, a Dunedain ranger just like Aragorn before he became king of Gondor, spoilers by the way. Elagast is searching for his dwarven friend Hadhod, who joins the party after helping him take down a troll. And about halfway through the game you recruit Morwen, a warrior from Rohan who is searching for her missing family after a brutal attack on her village by Saruman's Uruk-hai, and Eowyn, a spear-wielding member of Rohan's royal guard who escorts you to Helm's Deep and then just never leaves. That's his story. Upon starting a new game, Gandalf, who is thankfully voiced by Ian McKellen, the actor who played him in the movies, expounds to you a brief history of Middle-earth concerning the creation of magical rings of power given to the elves, men, and dwarves, and of course the creation of the One Ring to rule them all by the Dark Lord Sauron. He recounts the climactic battle against Sauron 3,000 years ago where Isildur, son of Elendil the Tall, the High King of Gondor and Arnor, famously cut the ring from Sauron's hand and then refused to destroy it, leading to his death at the hands of orcs near the river Anduin, where the ring would fall from his hand and remain at the bottom of the great river for 2,500 years. Gandalf catches you up all the way to the Council of Elrond in Rivendell, where it was decided that a small fellowship of badasses from different races, and Pippin, would escort the ring to Mordor and cast it into the fires of Orodruin, aka Mount Doom, where it would finally be unmade. At the end of this narration, it is revealed that Gandalf is in fact telepathically speaking to Barethor in some way. This trend of showing clips from the movies with Gandalf narrating over them while talking to Barethor continues throughout the game in a feature they call epic scenes. In this way, Gandalf guides Barethor and the player through the game. While starting off cool and informative, they quickly become repetitive and quite invasive. They break immersion, and there are far too many of them, 109 in total. Through this brief introduction, you're supposed to glean that at some point, Gandalf met Barethor on the road and decided to remain in communication with him telepathically. But it isn't fully revealed why that is until many hours into the game. It's a mystery that could have been handled a little bit better. I suppose some of you in the audience could be completely new to the lore of the Lord of the Rings. Gandalf, Sauron, Isildur, Elendil the Tall. Who are these people? Why was there a great war going on? What's the deal with the ring? Okay, so I'll try to sum things up as best as I can to get you up to speed. So, Ainulindala, the music of the Ainur. There was Eru, the One, who in Arda is called Ilúvatar, and he made first the Ainur, the Holy Ones, that were the offspring of his thought, and they were with him before aught else was made. Okay, jokes aside, we don't have time for this. I'll provide more context where I can, but if you want more details, go watch the extended editions of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and then come back here. So right off the bat, Barethor is attacked by some ring wraiths, or Nazgul. These are immortal servants of Sauron who are searching for his ring. It's a scripted fight where Barethor gets his butt kicked, and there isn't anything you can do about it. I love the attack animation of the Nazgul here. How good is that? This is where the game draws its comparisons to Final Fantasy X. It is a conditional turn-based system, or CTB for short, where you can see the turn order of all the combatants on the right-hand side of the screen. In this system, when it's your character's turn, you can take as long as you like to select an action, but this turn order is not set in stone, hence the conditional aspect. Stunning the enemy with special abilities or using certain spells to hasten your own party members will change the action order, and your enemies have the option to do the same. I do think the character portraits look a little bit silly though. Look how zoomed in Barethor and Hadhod's faces are. It's just comical. They don't look heroic at all. Battles are a mix of random encounters with familiar enemies from the movies like orcs, wargs, goblins, and the mighty Uruk-hai. One thing about battles that sets the Third Age apart from Final Fantasy X to me is how awesome the attack animations are for both regular attacks and special skills. The camera will change angles and slow down in a Zack Snyder-esque way to really emphasize the power of the attack, or amplify the pain of a missed blow from your sword. When enemies take a big hit, they will reel back in pain or even get completely knocked onto their backs. It just really sells the power and feels great to play. In addition to being able to freely choose what character parameters to increase upon leveling up, you can also freely choose what special skill to unlock next. Every time you use a skill, the game gives you a single skill point towards whatever skill you have chosen to level up next. So using Barethor's Company Might, which increases party damage, will move me one step closer to unlocking Company Valor, which increases your party's dexterity, constitution, and speed. The characters also have multiple skill trees for different types of combat styles. The aforementioned skills for Barethor are from his leadership tree, for example. It mostly features buffs or resistances for the party. His other skill tree, Swordcraft, features things like Orcbane, which, you guessed it, does increased damage to orcs, and Ecthelian Wrath, which allows him to strike 3 times in one turn, though it does seem to miss a lot on the second and third swings. Using skills and taking certain actions fills up what they call the perfect mode meter over here on the right. It's basically like a limit break from Final Fantasy VII, but for the entire party. It lets you do things like summon wargs or ents or even great eagles to do tons of damage for you. Luckily, Idriel appears to save the day, casting a spell of watery spirits that take the form of horses to drive the unholy creatures away. You may recall that a similar fate befell the ring wraiths in the river just before Rivendell in the Fellowship of the Ring movie, but that isn't where the similarities end. Listen to what Idriel says here.
Let it pass to him. Let him be spared.
This is a line lifted directly from Arwen in the movie, except she was referring to Frodo. These little callbacks are given to other characters in the game like Hadhod the Dwarf as well, and it unfortunately cheapens their identities by linking them too strongly with similar characters from the movies. This won't be the last time this happens. Regardless, Idriel wants to make haste to find Berethor some medicine and some better equipment, and this is where the open world is introduced. Not open in the sense of, say, Aiden Chronicles or Skyrim, but more along the lines of Final Fantasy X, 12, and 13, where you can make use of the minimap on the top right to know exactly where you can move. The game path is linear, with no choice and consequence to change up the story that you would find in a more complex RPG, but the environments, especially the forest and Moria regions at the beginning of the game, are filled with enough diverting paths, quests, and treasures for you to find to not make your journey feel too restrictive and confined. However, the environmental and exploration design is something that falls off heavily after the Moria region, which I'll show you examples of later. But as soon as you come out of that cutscene with Idriel, you're prompted with a new epic scene. The game literally just gave you a little text window explaining the open world nature of the game, and before you take a single step, they prompt you to watch a movie scene. Why? This one in particular explains that the Nazgul are hunting Boromir and the Fellowship, and the scene after explains the origins of Idriel. Could she not have just explained herself somehow? Nearby a chest can be found containing a better shield for Berethor. Most of the equipment you get in chests or from battles will be an upgrade for that character, and they often give you ability score increases as well. So a new chest piece might give you 10 more strength points and 50 more health, for example. And you can check these bonuses with the square button in the equipment menu. One of the cooler things about this game is how awesome the gear looks. The art team had excellent material to pull from with the movies and how great the costume design was for them, and it really shows here. Everything you equip will show up on the characters in battle, the overworld, and cutscenes, and the visual feedback from the constant upgrading of gear is just super cool.
Inside, Gondorian. Your wounds must be healed.
Weapons. Provisions. The elves are very resourceful.
Long have we kept such way stations for times of great need.
I am Berethor, captain of the Citadel Guard of Gondor.
And I am Idriel. I serve Galadriel, Lady of Light. Take what you need, and let us be on our way.
You'll notice here that it says, Quest complete, Journey to the Elf Outpost. Berethor gained 330 XP. Why Berethor? Because whoever you're controlling in the open world gets the experience points for quest completions. You can cycle between anyone in your current party to give them a little edge on the rest of the group, or catch up someone who may be lagging a little behind in levels. After saving a group of elven scouts from a pack of orcs, a cutscene plays that suggests Idriel knows more about Berethor than she's letting on.
They will trouble you no longer.
You have found him.
What do you mean by that?
It is nothing.
Typical elven mystery. Soon after, Elagast introduces himself as only a ranger of the North can.
A man. Badly wounded.
Wait for the wargs to approach.
They'll kill him. Hold on!
Hello, lovelies.
You live?
No thanks to you. Can't you see I was hunting them? You want to use the crows. Lure the wargs in close. They kill faster that way.
You were of the Dunedain.
At your service, lady. You meant to help me, so perhaps you may.
The cutscenes, though few in number for a 25-hour game, are actually pretty well done for 2004. The animations were motion captured by the voice actors themselves, adding to the cinematic quality of the shots. The quality really made me wish there were more of them. One of the things the game lacks is character interaction. For an RPG, we don't get to see enough fireside chats or rests taken next to the river or anything like that. There are too few opportunities for character exploration, and so the party members seem to barely know each other as the game progresses. This cheapens some of their interactions later on, as they feel very unearned and sort of tacked on without any care taken to build them up. Elagast is the beast slayer of the group. He has special attacks that cause extra damage to wargs, for example. I love how he charges up his bow and it glows with this unnatural green energy. What is this, fell magic? Is he a warlock or something? It clashes with the generally low magic setting that Middle-earth offers, but it's still cool nonetheless.
What are you doing?
You want to be sure they're good and dead. Some are mighty hard to kill.
Not even these sacred places are safe.
How do I know I can trust this one?
I vouch for him. In the name of the Lady of the Galadrim.
That is good enough for me.
You know what's funny about Elagast is that he's exclusively a ranged fighter in combat, but in every cutscene he's holding a sword. Curious.
So tell us, Ranger. What happened back there in the pass?
It was a bewitched fight, voices echoing down from the mountains. Then lightning struck all around us. The dwarf fought like one possessed, but a landslide carried him away. Before he fell, he gave me a map, presented to him by Elrond of Rivendell as a gift of friendship. But I could not withstand the dark powers that ruled the mountain that night. While I lay there burning, that Mordor orc ripped the map away and fled down the mountain. That map revealed the location of the secret entrance to a forgotten realm.
Moria.
Yes, the greatest city of the dwarves, whose location was lost during the Great Wars.
So there you have it. Find the dwarf, find the not-so-secret entrance to Moria. So Gandalf has this telepathic connection with Barethor, but he never talks to any of the other party members about it, or seems to use the information he's given to their advantage. There's a huge disconnect between the epic scenes and the adventure that your party is on, and things just start to feel very disjointed. I didn't really care as a kid because these things just didn't occur to me. I was just looking for the next more powerful sword. But the narrative jumble during this playthrough was quite jarring. It makes the story feel very rushed and haphazardly planned. I know they were probably just using the whole Gandalf-Barethor connection as an excuse to get contextual information to the player, who could possibly be someone who never watched or read The Lord of the Rings at all. But that's the problem with using the epic scenes in the first place. Just have the characters discuss these things between themselves. If it was too much to voice or animate, they could have just used simple text boxes or something.
Ah, fresh tracks. The dwarf came this way.
He is heavy for one so small.
I'd be careful not to say that around him.
Quiet. Both of you. I hear something.
Well, Ranger, it's about time.
After rescuing Hadhod the dwarf from this giant troll, the party gathers up and heads towards Moria. As the party approaches the entrance to Moria, a group of orcs attack, and then they are killed by a bunch of random elves. Seriously, who is this guy? Why is he here? Well, don't worry about it, because it's time to fight the Watcher in the water. If you look closely, you can see that half of one of its tentacles is missing, because in the movie, Boromir chopped it off to save Frodo from the Eldritch Abomination. Nice little attention to detail there, very cool. Also, in the movie, the Watcher destroys the doors behind the Fellowship and traps them inside, and during this fight it accidentally clears away the rubble so you can get in behind them, which is just hilarious. Moria is my favorite area of the whole game and where the game shines the most. The level design is perfect. The artwork and sheer sense of scale was perfectly captured. And Hadhod gets a chance to shine here in combat with his attacks that do extra damage to goblins. There's a perfect ratio of scripted battles, random encounters, and cutscenes. There are plenty of side quests and little nooks and crannies for you to explore, and all kinds of great weapons, gear, and treasures to find. It's simply where the flow and pacing of the game is the best. The crazy thing about the whole Moria sequence is that it only spans like 20 pages of material in the books. Tolkien really knew how to set a scene and get his point across without too much unnecessary yapping, unlike me. One of my favorite scenes from the books is a moment where Gimli sings a song about the history of Moria, particularly its founder during the first, and a few of its verses kept running through my head as I explored these halls in the game. Here are a few of my favorites. The world was young, the mountains green, no stain yet on the moon was seen. No words were laid on stream or stone, when Durin woke and walked alone. He named the nameless hills and dells, he drank from yet untasted wells. He stooped and looked in Mirror, and saw a crown of stars appear, as gems upon a silver thread, above the shadow of his head. A king he was, on carven throne, in many pillared halls of stone, with golden roof and silver floor, and runes of power upon the door. The world is grey, the mountains old, the forge's fire is ashen cold. No harp is rung, no hammer falls, the darkness dwells in Durin's halls. The shadow lies upon his tomb, in Moria and Khazad-dûm. But still the sunken stars appear, in dark and windless Mirror. There lies his crown in water deep, till Durin wakes again from sleep. After nearly getting crushed by the armored skeleton that Pippin dropped, the party witnesses the Balrog crawling up from the molten depths of the mountain. The Balrog kind of just appears. I feel like they could have built a little bit more suspense to its reveal like they did in the movies, and they react to it as if it's a spider crawling up a wall or something and not one of the most powerful dark creatures to ever exist in Middle-earth. As the party makes their way out of the pit, Berethor saves Idriel from a crumbling bridge, and he is repaid with a kiss that comes out of nowhere. "You have my love," she says. And she doesn't elaborate on this for another 10 hours of gameplay. This begins one of the sloppiest and shoehorned love stories I've ever seen in a game. Not that I'm an expert, but there was no evidence that these two even liked each other up until this point. But this burgeoning romance has to wait, because we've got a Balrog to fight. The party shows up just as Gandalf is making his legendary stand against the ancient servant of Morgoth on the bridge of Khazad-dûm. This was my favorite fight in the game as a kid, and it remains my favorite fight to this day. You get to stand shoulder to shoulder with Gandalf in battle and control his actions. And Gandalf is ultra powerful. His attacks do thousands of damage, and the party would be doomed without him. In this way, the game respects the power scale of both Gandalf and the Balrog in the lore, which I appreciated. And they completely killed it by replicating the design of the Balrog from the movie. The billowing smoke effects, the fire coming from his body, the molten glow of its skin when doing a special attack, it's all really top-notch stuff. I luckily found a video on YouTube that went over the design of the Balrog and the techniques they used to create it, and I'll link it in the description. It's worth a watch if you're into that sort of behind-the-scenes thing. Gandalf's fate at the bridge of Khazad-dûm remains the same, and the party moves forward through Lothlorien and into Rohan. What's funny is that Gandalf still speaks to Berethor through epic scenes even after falling through the chasm. He's like, "Hey bro, I'm still with you, don't freak out. Anyway, you're gonna love Lothlorien." What's really cool is that you can actually replay the fight with the Balrog while controlling the Balrog. This game comes with an evil mode, where you can play through the events of the act as the bad guys. It's limited to combat scenarios, but completing each section of evil mode rewards you with some cool equipment that you can give to your characters. Up until this point, I was enjoying a wonderful gameplay experience filled with nostalgia, but not fueled by nostalgia. The gameplay was doing the heavy lifting. It was legitimately fun up until this point, where it unfortunately dropped off a cliff in narrative and gameplay. When the party arrives in the lands of Rohan, they are greeted by this random elf named Aranel that we saw outside of Moria. It turns out that he's been tracking the group at the behest of Idriel. He requests your help to clear out random groups of Uruk-hai and wargs through this complicated system of drab rock caves. It's just an incredibly dull area with loads of combat. And to make matters worse, your party gets nerfed really hard, and this is a theme that continues through the rest of the game. You spend most of an act gaining power, learning new skills, and seeing your damage numbers go up and up and up. But every time you start a new area, your damage goes down immensely. I mean, it literally gets cut in half in some cases. So I guess what they did was just increase the armor value of the enemies you face. I know there's different philosophies on how to handle damage numbers, but I prefer to just increase the health pool of the enemies or change the battle tactics that they use. Don't nerf the players. Find a way to make the arc of steadily increasing damage work over the course of the game, which shouldn't be difficult for a game like this that is relatively short. It doesn't have to be perfectly linear in all cases, but if you're playing the game, you notice the dip at the beginning of every act, and it is very jarring. Once you notice it, combat becomes very frustrating. Eventually, Gandalf reveals himself to be alive in the same fashion in which he revealed himself to Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas in Fangorn Forest. I unfortunately wasn't recording my sound for this part of the gameplay, a very amateurish mistake on my part, but this moment jump-scared the shit out of me. I was just mindlessly running through these rock caves, and then Gandalf appeared out of nowhere. Very startling. He appears to warn you of orcs around the corner, then disappears until the final act of the game. Soon after this, you get another epic scene, and at the conclusion of it, Gandalf says, "Soon Saruman's evil will be broken, and you will be free of him forever." Okay, what does that mean? Saruman has a spell on Berethor? This is one of my big problems with the epic scenes. They give good context in some cases, but it's often completely out of order, either coming too soon or too late. In this case, it was way too soon. It isn't revealed through actual gameplay events that Berethor is a pawn of Saruman until like 3 hours from now. Anyway, eventually you make it out of here and into the open fields of Rohan, where a village is being attacked by Saruman's Uruk-hai. This is where you meet Morwen, one of the final party members. She's searching for her missing parents who fled during the attacks. Thinking they probably fled south toward Edoras, Berethor offers her a place in the party and she agrees to come along. Morwen has a pretty interesting set of skills. Her choice of weapons are dual-wielded axes, and she is purely offensive. Most of her attacks either significantly boost her damage, make her attack multiple times, or even delay an enemy's attack or cause poison. She's also the thief of the group, able to steal items or equipment from enemies. She can even steal skill points from the enemy that can level up both of her skill trees, which is pretty neat. Unfortunately, she has very little defense, so she goes down quickly in battles against stronger foes, but she's still very fun to play. Adding Morwen to the party triggers Stage 2 of the romance subplot between Berethor and Idriel.
How can we find them in the midst of this?
I suggest you locate one of their maps. Since you now prize the cause of these people over the elves, because of one pretty face.
Talk about speedrunning a relationship. Remember that time I saved you from falling in lava? The quest objective in this area is to gather up random riders of Rohan and direct them to the journey to Helm's Deep. Once that's done, you wind up in Edoras, where you make your way to the Hall of King Theoden for a climactic battle with Grima Wormtongue.
We are trapped once again.
But now the worm is here with us. Tell me, Grima, why do you betray your kind? Is it for wealth, power, subservience to Saruman?
That is a lie. Saruman the White has ever been our friend and ally.
His voice saps the will. He used it to gain entrance.
I really didn't waste time thinking about the logistics of how Grima even came back to Edoras after being banished by Theoden. I just enjoyed punching his dumb face in. And honestly, I'd given up trying to piece together a timeline that made sense for any of these events. After the battle, things get a little steamy with Morwen and Berethor.
This power here is broken.
So is much of Snowbourn. But what survives is because of you. I owe you much. We cannot tarry here. We must reach the high road.
Look, I'm no expert on women, but even I can tell when a woman really wants to be friends. On the road to Helm's Deep, Morwen finds evidence of her mother's passage through a warg cave in the form of a brooch. After dispatching the wargs, the party exits on the other side and meets Eoden, the final member of the party.
You are more than a warrior, my friend.
You know us, lady. I am of Rohan's royal guard. The outlying villagers have been warned, so I now journey to Helm's Deep with you.
Sure, man. Welcome aboard. Remember Elegost, the ranger from the beginning of the game? Well, he finally gets to show off some of those ranger class skills in this scene.
A man and a woman ran here. The woman fell. They huddled here. Until the end.
Cool. Thanks for piecing that together for us, man. Sadly, this turns out to be Morwen's missing mother and father, but there's little time for mourning, as the party is almost immediately attacked by Sharku the Orc and his warg mount. I used this battle as an opportunity to test the skills of our newly acquired party member Eoden. Yep, you're gonna fit right in. Eoden actually ended up being my favorite character combat-wise. He hits like a truck, commonly hits critical strikes, and can even drain health and action points from enemies and give it to himself. He kinda reminds me of Kumari from Final Fantasy X, sort of a dragoon/lancer hybrid of sorts. Except he doesn't have any cool jumping attacks, which is a shame. As soon as the battle with Sharku is over, the party is immediately teleported to Helm's Deep.
The gates have closed! What is your business here? This is the business of the king. I shall allow it! Open the gates!
What's cool about the Helm's Deep level is that the production team had access to the model used for the movie, so they were able to create an almost one-to-one copy of it in the game. And it really does look amazing. The problem is that there just isn't much to do here. You get sent on a few fetch quests and get told to talk to Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn before the big battle. The funny thing about talking to them is that it's very easy to tell that their lines weren't recorded for the game. They were just lifted from the movies, so it feels like you're just talking to a soundboard or an action figure, rather than an actual character in the game.
Farmers, farriers, stable boys. These are no soldiers. All Isengard is emptied. 10,000 strong at least. I fear a bitter fight lies before us. They will be here by nightfall.
The fighting at Helm's Deep starts off cool enough. You have to fight off waves of Uruk-hai and also destroy these ladders as part of the mechanics of the fight. But everything that comes after this is a slog. You win here, go downstairs, fight 10 battles, run to another area and fight 10 more battles. It's quite exhausting and repetitive as you see mostly the same enemy types over and over again. Luckily you get to fight with Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn for most of it, which makes it a little bit cooler. But after the battles are over, the full story of Saruman's involvement in Barethor's past is finally clearly revealed.
At this moment, the Ents smash into Saruman's fortress. His power is overthrown by a more ancient one. Do you remember now? Does your doom return to you?
You are mine, Gondorian. You shall obey my will. There are none who can resist me. Find Boromir, son of Denethor, for he shall capture an item of great value. Bring it to me. Nothing else matters. Will you do this?
Yes. I obey the white hand of Saruman.
His hold over you is now broken. You are now free. He controls you no more. Do you now understand? She was your guide while you walked in shadow. The darkness has lifted.
See, with this new information, Barethor and Idriel's story suddenly becomes a lot more interesting. The problem is that it was a mystery that was too well hidden. We needed more evidence or hints of Barethor's brainwashing by Saruman, because other than some cryptic hints from Gandalf and a few out-of-place epic scenes, Barethor otherwise seemed perfectly fine. He showed no evidence of being compelled along his journey or to be suffering from some sort of psychosis. It was a cool idea, it just needed to be communicated better in my opinion, and doesn't really work as a mid to late game shocking reveal. Phase 3 of the romance, Barethor gets a post-battle smooch. We are so back. After the conclusion of Helm's Deep, the party rides for Osgiliath at the behest of Gandalf to aid Faramir's doomed forces there. Faramir is Boromir's brother, if you don't know or don't remember. Soon after arrival, more of Barethor's backstory comes to light. It turns out that he was involved with one of Boromir's battles here back before he joined the Fellowship. In that battle, Barethor fled in cowardice, and was subsequently banned from Gondor by Denethor. It was during this exile that he was found by Saruman and then brainwashed to do his bidding. I was delighted to see that Faramir makes an appearance here.
Chance for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to show his quality.
Look at this, he actually has an ability called Faramir's Quality. How cool is that? Together you win a battle against Gothmog the Orc, who scurries away upon defeat. After another hour or two of random battles, the party ends up regrouping with Faramir and facing Gothmog a final time. You actually have to defeat him first, which seems backwards to me because I always kill the ads first, but if you don't, he'll just infinitely keep summoning enemies to replace the ones you defeat. After the battle, Idriel gets carried off by a fell beast and a Nazgul, which briefly splits up the party. She ends up cutting its leg and falling into the river, but she's still on her own. Faramir's forces retreat to Gondor, and Barethor and the remaining party members set off to rescue Idriel from certain death. After fighting through more waves of trolls, orcs, and a few Nazgul, Barethor meets back up with Idriel to face off against the Witch King of Angmar, but his attacks are useless. For some reason, he can't cause any damage.
A Morgul blade. Wait, I've seen this before. I was struck by this. Here, on this island.
Your mind is rooted in shadow. We wanted you here, Gondorian. Full of power to throw open the gates of Minas and sow terror. Fulfill the will of Sauron. Submit to the power of the Nazgul. Bow to me.
I cannot harm him.
He is immune to your power. He created you. The elves held back his enchantment with their artifacts, so he could not turn you into one of his kind. But his fell power still exists within you, embedded deep upon the tip of a Morgul blade.
Barethor has had a hell of a time. Not only was he brainwashed by Saruman, but he's also been carrying around the broken shard of a Morgul blade in his shoulder. That's a rough hand of fate. So what is to be done here? Well, Barethor says screw the elves and their fancy pants hippie magic. I'm just gonna cut this bitch out right here on the battlefield. I was a little concerned for his life, but luckily he's too much of a badass to bleed out.
Son of a bitch is dug in like an Alabama tick.
You're hit. You're bleeding, man.
I ain't got time to bleed.
Oh. Okay.
With Barathor's corruption dealt with, he and Idriel can layeth the smacketh down upon him. He was pretty tough, so I had to use a perfect mode attack to summon the Great Eagles for assistance. Defeated, the Witch King flees and the party heads for Minas Tirith.
Gondor has abandoned the city. The orcs have won this fight.
You have given me so much, lady. Do not have the words to say what is in my heart.
Upon the other side, our fates ever shall draw apart. It is Morwen for whom you are destined.
Phase 4 of the romance. You got a feel for Barathor here, man. This emotional whiplash would drive me insane. I'm so glad nothing like this has ever happened to me in real life. Arriving in Minas Tirith, the party gets thrown straight into the action. Grond, everyone's favorite character, has broken through the main gates and the forces of Mordor are pouring in. Right off the bat, you get to fight these badass armored trolls. They look so freaking cool. This one even has a little top knot. How cute is that? Terribly misunderstood creatures, trolls. The journey through the city and up to the tower where Denethor resides is another long slog of battles. They are epic in scope, and the fights against the Nazgul can be particularly challenging because of their fear mechanic, which will freeze a character in place for the rest of the fight, unless you give them some dwarven ale. Nothing steals the nerves like some good dwarven ale. At the top of the city, you assist Gandalf in repelling the Witch King once more. After the fight, you make it to the White Tree of Gondor just in time to see the demise of Denethor, in what has to be the most unintentionally funny cutscene in the game.
It is Denethor!
You are free of banishment. The steward of Gondor is no more, but his hall is under attack. The banner of Elendil is kept here. You must claim it.
You heard the man. We need the banner of the old High King himself, Elendil the Tall, who was 7'11", according to the first wiki I found while googling how tall was Elendil the Tall. Look at the reflective surfaces on the floor here. Just exquisite. And the light shining through from the west. Beautiful. But yeah, the party fights through here and the banner is sitting behind this big chair.
Be gone! This shall rally Gondor in this great time of need.
Okay, that was pretty badass. As soon as Barathor gets the banner, the party is transported to the Pelennor Fields for the final act of the game. They show you a part of Theoden's epic speech before rudely cutting him off with a battle. The Pelennor Fields area is another grind of endless combat similar to Helm's Deep. At this point, half the characters in the party have been completely forgotten. Elagast, Hadhod, and Morwen haven't had a decent cutscene since before Helm's Deep started, which was like 10 hours ago gameplay-wise. About halfway through the battlefield, you once again run into the Witch King while he's having his battle with Eowyn. Come to think of it, where is Pippin? Actually, I just realized they haven't shown a single hobbit outside of cutscenes this entire game. This final battle with the Witch King was pretty tough. His armor is crazy high, and he has a ton of health. I think he actually beat me 2 or 3 times before I started digging through my hoard of unused items in desperation. That's when you know you're cooked in an RPG. There's gotta be something in this pile of junk. And for once, I did find something that saved me. I found an item called Morgul Decay, which, according to the item description, removes a foe's armor entirely. There's no way this works on bosses, I thought to myself. Huh. Well, I'll be damned. That took Barathor from doing 3,000 damage a hit to about 22,000 damage a hit. Suffice it to say, this made the battle substantially easier. Don't forget to use those items. You never know. The Witch King had nothing on these 2 Oliphants here, though. I know the little turn ticker over here to the right says they get 1 turn, but that's very misleading. They can each use up to 7 attacks, so the party has to be able to withstand up to 14 rounds of ass beatings. They stomp the ground, call a volley of arrows from archers on their backs, breathe their stinky breath at you, swing their trunk through everyone, It's just a brutal fight. Not as easy as Legolas makes it look. Soon after that battle, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, shows up with a ship full of ghosts to turn the tide of battle in the Gondorians' favor. You actually get to use this ability when he joins your party for the final set of battles. He has a couple other attacks, but Call of the Dead does the most damage, and his action points reset after each fight. So there's really no reason at all to use the other ones, unless you're just curious about what they do. So you fight your way through some more trolls and Nazgul. Then you get shown another random epic scene of Aragorn becoming King of Gondor, which is great and all, but again, it's just weirdly out of order. Why would you show that here? Could it not wait for the conclusion of the game? The final sequence of this game is truly bizarre. First, the party fights through a group of 3 trolls, which leads you into the following cutscene.
We have won! They are
Interesting to see that the Nazgul have taken an interest in Barethor's love life, but with Aragorn at your side, the Nazgul are fairly easy to take down.
She barely lives.
What is this?
A Morgul blade. I was too late.
I shall not fail.
For it is said in old lore, the hands of the king are the hands of a healer, and so shall the rightful king be known. Gee, this Morgul Blade healing spell sure would have been useful on Weathertop Aragorn. Glad to see these two end up together. I was Team Morwen from the jump, by the way.
You have rekindled hope in me. Let us face the days ahead, together.
My liege, how may I repay you?
You bow to no one.
How may this be answered, my lord?
We gather our full strength and march on the Black Gate.
So where do we go from here? The Black Gate, as Aragorn just said? Perhaps a charge to Mordor to the slopes of Mount Doom to help Frodo and Sam? I'll do you one better. How about the top of the Tower of Barad-dûr in a winner gets Middle-earth battle for it all against the Eye of Sauron itself, the last vestige of the spirit of Sauron? How did this happen? How did they even get up here? Look, aside from how absurd this whole thing is, you have to admit the visuals are pretty amazing. The Eye looks great, but the backdrop with Mount Doom in the distance is just too cool. As it turns out, the Eye is also vulnerable to the Morgul Decay item, which takes away all of its armor and makes the fight a cakewalk. A few rounds later, our heroes are victorious. Cue the final cutscene.
There are other great tales of this age that you shall hear in the fullness of your lives, of great bravery and fellowship beyond measure. Of a king who faced death to buy time for a friend. Of the smallest of us changing the future of our world. Of the destruction of evil and the triumph of good. Of the departure of the elves from the history of man. How the Fellowship of the Ring, those eternally bound by friendship and love, began and ended. But those are not your story. Your tale has hardly begun.
Let's not worry about how they got off the tower before it was destroyed. I'm sure everyone is fine. What a ride that was. You know, my dad was a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings books, and he had a ton of problems with the way the movies handled things, particularly Faramir's character. I wonder how he would have reacted if I showed him a bunch of made-up characters going toe-to-toe with a Balrog in the Eye of Sauron. As a kid, I understood that great liberties were being taken with this game and its story, and I didn't really care just because it was cool, harmless fun in a video game. And I feel the same way now. In fact, I started laughing my ass off during the final boss battle because I'd completely forgotten how the game ended. I do remember how my weekends used to go when I first bought this game though. I would wake up at like 10 or 10:30, like half an hour before the football game started. College football if it was Saturday, NFL football if it was Sunday. My grandpa would make me this comically huge breakfast because I was so skinny. I mean like a tray of 5 eggs, bacon, sausages, biscuits and gravy, toast with butter and jelly, and chocolate milk on top of all that. Best way to start the day. So I would eat that, and then set my little CRT on the floor next to the couch in the living room. That way I could hook up my PS2, play some Third Age, and watch football at the same time. Life was grand. I remember after beating the game once, I would sit the game down for a while, and then when I played it again, I would just go up until you fight the Balrog, and I think now I understand why. The game just kind of stalls out after that fight. It loses some of its juice. I just don't think I could bring myself to run through those damn caves again. And while it has some nice little RPG mechanics, it's not the most complicated game in the world. It definitely isn't going to challenge an RPG veteran tactically or strategically at all. And not much thought needs to be put into your character builds because it just isn't that difficult really. It doesn't have the replay value of something like Morrowind or Oblivion, but it is cool, and fun, and full of humor in an absurd sort of way. Sometimes you just want to kick back, roll up some old Toby, and hang out in Middle-earth for a while. And the time in which it was released is important to note too. It was the height of the Lord of the Rings hype, and I couldn't get enough of Middle-earth. I used to fall asleep every night watching the Two Towers. Every single night. Then I'd wake up to the menu music playing, hit play on the controller, then roll over and go back to sleep again. Anyway, this has meandered off into reminiscent territory, so I'll just say this. The Third Age definitely isn't a genre-defining RPG by any means. I wouldn't even say it's a must-play game that needs to go in your backlog, but to me it has just as important of a place for my love of the Lord of the Rings franchise as the books and the movies do. I'm so happy it got made, and that it was there for me to play and enjoy during my formative gaming years. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, a like and a subscribe for the channel would go a long way. I'd like to thank my current channel members as of the writing of this script. First off, my knights, Jason R, Corey S, Rabid Duck, and Steamed Hams. And my lords, Ethereal Omni, Grimace45, and Dion G. Thank you, my dudes. And thank you all again for watching. Good fortune to you all, and farewell, wherever you may fare.